Hey. All right. Good afternoon, class. Another beautiful day in 6.1, negative exponents.
All right, thank you, Will.
Yep.
Yes, question.
Is there another paper?
Can you get another paper?
Yep.
Here, wait.
All right, so what we're going to do today is we're going to use most of the same rules as yesterday. In fact, there's a spot on the back of the notes. We're going to write them again, okay, just to make sure we remember them. And then there's one extra thing that has to do with negative exponents. But other than this one thing, all the other rules are exactly the same. Nothing is going to change. All right? So, right now we've been working with positive exponents. Okay, just watch this. Okay. I want to take a look at this. Okay, I think, let's see if this is on your...
No. Oh.
No, that's okay.
Oh no.
Just watch this. So let's do 2 to the first power. What's 2 to the first power? 2. 2 to the second power? 4. And 2 to the third?
16.
8. Right? You all set, well?
Yeah. That was my phone.
Is your dancing machine moves over there? All right, you gotta keep practicing a little bit. All right, so look what we got. 2 to the first power is 2. 2 to the second power is 4. 2 to the third power is 8. Watch the pattern. You take half each time if you go backwards. So what's half of 8?
4.
4. Half of 4?
2.
2. What's half of 2?
1.
Half of 2? 1. That's why 2 to the 0 power is 1. Okay?
Oh, we're living negative.
Now, let's keep going. What's half of 1?
0.5.
A half, or 0.5.
That's a big part.
What's half of a half?
I think like a 4.
A fourth. Okay? So what I'm trying to show you with negative exponents is that negative exponents are fractions. Okay? When you have a negative exponent, it's a fraction. All right?
So there will never be like a negative fraction?
No, we're not going to have that. We're just going to have negative exponents. Okay?
No, I meant like it will never like be like 2 negative 1. It won't be like a negative.
We'll do an example. You'll see.
It's not going back.
I can't see it.
So what I would put on your reference sheet, I think I have it right here. Thus, we can see any non-zero number. So any number that's not 0 raised to the 0 is 1. So we're writing that down right there. Any number to the 0 power is 1. Except that one. 0 to the 0, that's a little different. We won't ever have that come up in this class. Right? So if I use my calculator and I type in 6 to the 0, what am I going to get? What's 6 to the 0?
6 to the 0 is 0.
6.
I got 6.
It's 1.
0.
0.
6 to the 1.
Any number raised to the
it's
0
1.
power is 1.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Jesus Christ.
So what's 6 to the 0?
1.
1. What's 9 to the 0?
1.
9 raised to the 0. 1. How about negative 8 raised to the 0? 1. Whoops, I typed it wrong. Negative 8. Remember, if you put a negative number, you always got to put it. You got to put it in parentheses. 1. Now, 0 to the 0. I told you we're not going to do this one. You might think, oh, it's going to be 1, right? Well, it's actually something we can't do. Okay? So you're never going to have to worry about this coming up. Okay? You might have 2 to the 0. You might have 5 to the 0. What about if I said x to the 0? As long as x is not 0, what would that come out to? 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay? Alright, so let's try this. Example 1a. It says 4 times x to the 0.
Wait, so it does no.
It would be not so, it would be
No, it would be 4 and 0.
4x. No, it would be 4 because it would be turned into 4 times
Does that say 4
1.
times
No,
x
but-
0?
No, but you can't solve
It'd
it.
be
So that's
5.
4
Yeah,
to the
because
x.
0.
Yes, right.
But it
Base
turned
is
into
the
4
0.
times 1. So
Alright, raise your hand.
Yours
Savannah?
would be false.
No,
Would it
it's
be
not.
5?
Well, let's start with 4. Can you do anything with 4, or is 4 just 4?
4 is
They
4.
just say-
4 is just 4. Now, times x to the 0. We just wrote that down right here.
That's 1.
X to the 0 is 1.
So I would correct
I'm
4.
sorry, so don't hit me.
4.
So
Times
4 times 1,
4.
which is 4.
It's okay, I already telling you guys don't like me enough to listen, huh?
Well, then step up.
Sorry.
Okay?
You need to leave yourself raised to the 0 power.
Just try.
Any questions on that?
No.
Okay, next one. Let's look at this. 5m to the 0. Now, we have parentheses. Okay?
Wait.
So follow your rules. Don't just say, oh, nothing. It's going to be something. What exponent is on the 5?
1.
1. What exponent is on the m?
1.
1. What do we do with the 0?
Distribute it.
Distribute it, right? So we're getting 5 to the, what's 0 times 1?
1.
0.
0 times 1 is 0.
Oh, I thought I was doing that.
0 times 1 again is 0 again. So those are my two exponents.
Oh.
What's 5 to the 0 power?
1.
1.
Yeah. That's
Whoa.
What's m to the 0 power? 1. 1 times 1? 1. Okay? So kind of the shortcut is if you have a bunch of stuff in parentheses and it's all raised to the 0 power, it's always going to come out to 1. Doesn't matter what you write. 2xy cubed times 5. If it's all to the 0 power, it's all going to come out to what?
1.
It's all going to come out to 1. Okay, so anytime you've got parentheses and a bunch of stuff inside with a 0 exponent outside, it all comes out to 1. If you forget it, you can do it out like this each time, but it's always going to come out to 1. It's going to come out to 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, a bunch of 1s. Okay? All right, let's try this one.
We try by ourselves.
No.
Okay, gosh, you guys are so awesome.
Sorry, I get scared when I do it by myself.
No.
This is kind of like 1b. This is what I just said to you. You've got a bunch of stuff in parentheses
Done.
to the 0.
These are getting a little
Is
repetitive.
it 2?
I know, we're going to do some different ones.
Savannah, 1 times 1 is not.
Oh, it's multiplication. I thought it was addition.
So think of this problem like this. Doesn't matter what's inside here. You can have
X equals 1.
anything you want.
God, they look like Hannibal Lecter.
So what would you get here?
It would be
1.
1.
It doesn't matter, like, it's a layer.
Because all you have to do is 1 times 1 is 1 because anything to the 0 is 1.
Right, it doesn't matter what you put inside. Anything to the 0 power is 1. Doesn't matter what's inside. Okay? Questions on that one? All right. So now, next thing I have to do is we have to explain how to deal with a negative exponent. Okay? We don't like negative exponents. Negatives get confusing. So the first thing we're going to do in any problem is we're going to make the negative exponent a positive. Okay? I'm going to show you how you do it. Okay, so on your reference sheet, it's going to be the next thing to write. Actually, no, it's right here. If we have a base with a negative exponent, you move the base with the exponent to the opposite place in the fraction. So you move the base with its exponent to the opposite place in the fraction. So if you have a negative and it's in the top, it's going to go to the bottom. If you have a negative in the bottom it's going to go to the top. So when you switch places, it gets rid of the negative with the exponent.
So when you switch it,
And we're going to do some examples. Yep.
Bottom is such a weird word to write.
it is. What home?
I could say say instead of write.
Do we do with that whole thing in that one line?
Well, you've got what, 4 lines?
There's 2 lines.
You
Oh
got
my gosh.
4 or 5 lines there to write it. Again, if you want to abbreviate it a little bit, you can. All right, so if you have a negative exponent just in an expression by itself, let's say all you had was this.
We're writing it down like if an
Yeah, I think there's a bullet on your sheet, isn't there?
But it only has
Yep.
one line, 2 lines.
Yeah, you'll be able to fit it on 2 lines. Yeah.
I won't.
And then the last bullet is already written for you. Yeah, you should be able to fit that. All right, so if you have a negative exponent in an expression, what number can I always put this over?
1.
Can always put it over 1. If you already know that, you don't need to write it. It's up to you.
We don't have to put those bullets.
Yep, the bullets are already on your paper for you. There's 2 bullets.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's 2 bullets and you can't fit it.
Just write really smaller than you usually do.
Okay, so
They're one paper.
if you have a negative exponent in an expression and it's not a fraction, just put it over 1. Just make it a fraction. And then what we end up doing is taking the base with its exponent. Those things are stuck together. You can't separate them. The x and the -2, think when they're glued together. This whole thing goes down to the bottom.
Do we move the bottom up?
Well, you don't know. You leave what's in the bottom in the bottom.
So
Okay?
it would be 1x to the -2 power?
1x, and what happens when you move it to the bottom is it makes the negative a positive.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh,
So
sorry.
that's why we move it. We're moving it because we don't like that it's negative. Once we move it, it turns positive. Move the bases with the negative exponents to make them positive. Okay? Now, this particular problem, when you move the x to the -2 to the bottom, there's nothing left in the top. You can't leave the top empty. You got to put something there.
So can we put a 1?
So whenever there's nothing there, we just put a 1. Okay? This and that are exactly the same thing. The only difference is one has a negative exponent, one doesn't. We like the top way better. Okay, so we don't want negatives. This bullet you should already have on your paper.
Yeah.
All the rules that we learned, the 5 rules that we had yesterday, which I'm going to put up, well, I'll put them up again in a second, are exactly the same. Exactly the same. Does everybody have the top bullet?
Yeah.
Anyone still copying that one?
No.
Okay.
You guys sound like squidwards.
Okay. How about the second bullet?
We
It's
already
already
You already got that, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're good. Okay, so the directions here say simplify only with positive exponents. So when we're done, no negatives. Okay, now we're supposed to move things in the fraction. Problem, that's not a fraction.
Yeah.
How do I make
Yeah.
it?
It is.
How do I make it a
No,
fraction?
you have to put 2 in.
There's a 1
No,
underneath
there's
it.
a 1 there.
There's a 1 underneath it, right?
I thought that the 2a was just
Nope, that's just the example.
You're going to do -1 times 1.
Now, what do we do with something that has a negative exponent to make it positive? Where do we move it? Yeah?
Me?
Yeah.
Sorry, no, you have to move it to the bottom.
Put it in the bottom. If there's anything else in the bottom, just leave it. You don't have to move that. Okay? Move it to the bottom. So, What's left in the bottom now?
1. Alright, 5 minus,
5 to the,
-1.
not negative
Isn't it
anymore.
1?
positive 1.
Positive.
5 to the negative 1?
Yep.
Positive 1?
You can leave the 1 there if you want.
Okay.
So the 1 was already in the bottom. And remember, when you move it, the whole point is to get rid of that negative. Once you move it, the negative is gone. But we have another problem. There's nothing in the top. You've got to put something there. So what can we put in the top?
1.
A 1.
Whenever you don't have anything, you can put a 1.
Okay. Let's do this out. What's 5 to the first power?
5.
5. What's 5 times 1? 5.
1/5.
So the real answer,
That's legit.
5 to the negative 1, is 1/5.
Is this gonna be on the test?
Yes.
Link the laughing king murders to hell.
I wouldn't teach it if it wasn't.
Me too.
Okay?
How are we gonna use this in life?
Because
Question.
I'm confused.
What's up? What are you confused on?
How do we
it's
know?
1 to 1.
How are you gonna, how are we
It's
gonna?
Hold
5
on,
to
Gem.
1.
I hear like 6 people. I'm trying to ask Gemini a question. Jack, Will. Will, you know what? Why don't you come sit right up here for me?
Alright.
Thank you. That'll maybe help Jack and you both.
But I thought the whole concept was to separate me and Will.
My room's only so big. You'll have to deal with it for today. So, anytime you have a number with a negative exponent, you either take it, if it's in the top and it's negative, we move the whole thing to the bottom. If we have a negative exponent in the bottom, we'll move it to the top. All right? So let's try another one. Let's look at this one. 3 to the 5th times 3 to the negative 8th. Look at the first one. Does that have a negative exponent?
No.
Leave it. Do not touch it. If it doesn't have a negative exponent, don't move it. If you move something that doesn't have a negative exponent, what do you think you're going to end up doing?
Giving it a negative.
You're going to be giving it a negative. Okay? If you move something that's already positive, you're going to mess it up. Don't move positive. Now, what can we put in the bottom? Because we don't have a fraction.
1.
A 1. So in the top, tell me what we have to move.
The negative 3 and the 3 and negative 8.
The 3 to the negative 8th power.
You gotta move it down to the 1.
That's going to go down in the bottom. If I do that, what's left in the top?
3 to the 5th power.
3 to the 5th. So we get 3 to the 5th in the top. And then what's in the bottom?
1 times 3 to the 8th, not the negative 8th.
1 times 3. And now remember, when you move it across that line, think of that line, it like magically gets rid of that negative.
It's like a magnet, so it takes the negative.
Yeah, exactly. It takes the negative away.
Wait, it's that's crazy.
Now, do we have to put the 1?
No.
We don't have to, so we could just do this.
But it makes more logical sense because it's like, then where did the 1 go?
Then do subtract.
Right. Now look at where your 3's are. Is the bigger one in the top or in the bottom?
The bottom, so it would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 3 to the 3rd.
3 to the 3rd, right? Bigger exponent is in the bottom. 8 minus 5 gives me 3. But when I do that, we always got to keep something in the top.
So it's a 1.
So just put a 1. And you can leave it like that. That's fine.
Yay!
Okay, so we used one of our rules from yesterday, the subtraction with the exponents. Right? Let's try another one. Let's look at this one. All right, make it a little bigger. A, wait a minute, there's no exponent. Let's put the exponent in. What would be the exponent on A? 1. So A to the 1, B to the negative 7th, B to the negative 3rd. Let's let's make it a fraction. What goes in the bottom?
1.
1. Let's circle the things that have to move.
The -7.
Say the whole thing.
The ones that have to move is b to the -7.
Exactly. B to the -7th. It's going to go down.
B to the -3.
B to the -3. It's going to go down. Can you shut my door?
Oh, Xander's blocking.
Okay.
Xander's vlogging?
So now we've got to move it. Who can tell me when I do that, what is left in the top?
A1.
On those spots now, A1.
A. Now, do you have to put the 1?
No.
That's up to you. If it's a 1, you don't have to put it. What's something that's in the bottom?
The b to the -7.
And what happens when that b to the -7
B
goes to the bottom? Becomes b to the 7th
B to the 3rd times b to the 3rd.
times b to the 3rd. Now again, could you put a 1 in front here? Yes, you can.
Felt like it.
You don't have to. A is in the top. Now look at the bottom. B to the 7th times b to the 3rd. What's the rule when you have something like this?
You can do it out. You can add the little tiny numbers.
You add them. What do you get?
B to the 10th.
10.
B to the 10th. Now, A has an exponent of 1, right?
Yes.
Can I do 10 minus
No.
1?
No,
And write
the
9?
bases aren't the same.
Exactly, the bases aren't the same. That's A, that's B. You can't combine an A with a B. That's all you can do. Yes?
What would it be if you could
Could you have embraced their type of?
It would be the same letter in the top and the bottom.
So would it
Like A over A or B over B.
be okay?
Yep, this is an A over a B, so it's different. All right, let's try one more of this type.
Oh my God, we have some.
All right, first thing we always want to do is make it a
It's a letter, not a number.
A fraction
make it
over
a,
1.
make it a fraction over 1. Now, just circle the things that have to move. Can someone just tell me one thing that has to move?
The X and X.
The what?
The X. The
You know what? Let's do one more thing. What number is in front of that X, even though they didn't write it?
1.
1.
So you bring down -1x or?
You bring down -1.
Oh, would it be Y?
-1. What's the exponent? Like if you have just a -1, what's the exponent?
One.
Just a 1.
So no, you don't have to.
So this part right here, that part's fine. No problem there. But there is something else that has a negative exponent we gotta move.
The negative x to the 4.
Okay. We're gonna move that. It's one thing.
And the negative x to the 5th.
The x to the -5th. Notice how I'm circling that?
Wait, why not the 1?
Whatever you said.
Because that doesn't have a negative exponent. It's just a -1.
Okay.
If it had -1 to the -3 or something like that, then you would move it. But nope, don't move that -1 number. It doesn't have an exponent that's negative. The x does. How about y squared?
No.
No.
Positive.
How about y to the -2?
Yeah.
Yep.
So if they're negative, you move them down.
They're
Yeah.
negative and they're in the top. You move them down.
If
All
they're
right,
in the
and-
bottom.
We haven't done one in
Positive,
the bottom.
you move them up.
But you would
Yeah.
move them up. Okay.
I'm just understanding.
Now let's look at what's left in the top. You're gonna have, what's the first thing in the top?
-1x.
You got a -1. That's gonna go down. Y squared, is that still in the top?
Yeah.
Yep. Y squared over. We've got the 1 in the bottom, but what else is there?
X. 4.
X to the
-4.
X to the 5th.
X to the 5th, that's the first one. Next one,
X to the 4th.
X to the 4th,
And then the second.
and Y to the 2nd. Okay, now do we have the same letter written more than once?
Yes.
If the same letter is written more than once, they can be combined. Look at the Y's first. What did I say about this yesterday? Y to a 2, Y to the 2nd. Same one in the top and bottom. What happens with that? Yeah? it cancels out. If you have the same letter to the same power in the top and in the bottom, it just cancels out. It's gone. What's in the top now? Negative 1. Now, look at the bottom. X to the 5th times x to the 4th.
It would be x to the 9.
X to the 9th. Perfect. That's how you do it. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, so at this point, I think you should be filled out with what's on the front. Let's write down our steps. So we're going to make sure you have these again. And these steps,
It's kind of cringy.
these steps are going to be the same steps as yesterday, except one new step.
So yeah, yesterday we only had 5.
Great, Sophia.
Okay, from yesterday, Joe, what's my first step?
I don't know, I forget.
Can I say it?
Oh, then you probably shouldn't talk.
Can I do it? Sorry.
Until you know everything that I do about this subject, you should probably be quiet.
Power to power.
Power to a power. Nice job, Josiah. Power to a power, if possible. Why did we write if possible?
Because some of them may not have them.
Not every problem is going to have every step. Yep. So do your power to a power. Step 2. This is the new step. Okay, I don't know if it says new on your notes,
And no.
but you might want to put new on the left side next to it. Step 2 fixes the negative exponents. Okay? And we did more than just write fix it. We even told you again how to fix it. Take the base with the negative exponent and put it in the opposite place in the fraction. If it's negative in the top, put it in the bottom. If it's negative in the bottom, put it in the top. Okay, steps 3, 4, 5, and 6. All the same steps as yesterday.
Okay. I have my notes.
Okay. Did anybody remember yesterday what the next step was after power to a power? Yep.
Add the exponents with the same bottom number.
That's our next step. There's one thing we have to do before that. Remember if we had something like this?
Oh, simplify the numbers with
We
the
have to
exponents.
distribute.
Simplify the numbers with the exponents.
I got one word.
Actually, this problem that's right on the board, that's exactly what would happen right here. 3 to the 2nd power. So if you have any numbers you can do out, like 3 to the 2nd, 4 to the 2nd, something that's pretty small, now we do it out. And then the next step is what Josiah said. Okay. Now we can subtract the exponents. Remember, when you're subtracting, they're on different levels. It's like an x in the top and an x in the bottom. If they're on the same level, like this, do you subtract them when they're on the same level? No, you add them, right? So that's steps 4 and 5.
What do you mean? I thought we subtracted there.
When they're on different levels, like right here, you would
Oh,
subtract.
okay.
When they're on the same level, like this one,
Yeah.
you would add.
Okay.
Okay, so step 4 is subtract the same base exponents that are on different levels. Remember, always put the answer where the bigger exponent was. Okay, that's where I keep asking you guys, top or bottom? Top or bottom? Okay, so that's that step. The 5th step, I just said it. Add the exponents that are on the same level. Okay, so that would be something like this. If they're on the same level, you add. And as far as our letters, at this point, you're done. The very last step. Does anyone remember what the last step was yesterday? It just involved numbers in a fraction. Yeah?
Reduce the numbers.
Reduce, if you can. So if you had something like that, you're pretty good, except one thing, you need to reduce 3/6, okay, which would be 1/2. Okay, so it's a lot of different steps. They're not hard steps, but you just have to remember the order to do them in. That's your order right there. Okay, so that's the new step for today, and we do it almost right away. It's the second thing we do.
Hold on. I'm almost done.
All right. Does everyone have the steps on the left?
Yeah.
Not yet.
No, I don't.
You still got, which one are you on, Gemini? Oh, you're on the 5th one? Okay.
Wait, is summer school like every day of the week for 8 weeks?
I'm not sure. I don't teach it.
Yes, it is.
It is.
I do through time.
Oh my god. Oh my
Wait,
god.
what?
Oh,
What's wrong?
All right, so let's look at example 3A. Do you guys have it written down, or do you need to copy it?
I have to copy
To
it.
copy it?
Please don't. I'm doing good now.
Okay.
I want red rock.
Me too.
Y2 over
Wait, what do you want to say?
X, Y.
Summer school's
Okay, so let's
8 weeks. And it's like
let's think about our rules.
Mhm.
Okay, don't just start doing stuff. Look at your rules.
Okay.
What's the first rule?
Can
Power,
we do a
power,
power to a
power.
power?
Power to a power. That usually means you have parentheses.
So we can't.
We don't have that. So what's the second rule?
Move the negative to the opposite one.
Move the
Negative exponent.
move the
It's 8.
base with the exponent. So the base and the exponent together. Can somebody give me a base that has a negative exponent here?
X to the -4
Yes, I agree. X to the -4th. Where's it going to go?
to the bottom.
It's going to go to the bottom. Let's look at the next one. Y to the 2nd.
No, that stays.
That's fine. Leave it alone. It's already positive. Don't move it. How about -3?
No, because it's not a little.
Yeah, but it's a negative. I thought I moved
But the
negatives.
exponents will be.
I only move exponents, negative exponents, not negative numbers. Negative numbers, leave them alone. Because like Joe just said, that doesn't have a negative exponent.
No.
It really has a 1.
But then the -5 will
All right.
be -5.
The y to the -5th goes to the top. Okay, so let's rearrange it and see what's still left in the top. First thing,
The 6 and then the Y to the
6.
second power.
the y to the 2nd. Okay, those things stayed. What else is in the top?
That's it. Oh, no, the Y to the 5th.
Y to the 5th is now in the top. Okay, what's in the bottom? -3,
And then X to the 4th.
x, and an x to the 4th from the top is going to come down. Now, do we have any negative exponents left?
No.
Perfect. This is just like a problem from yesterday now. There's no more negative exponents. Okay, so now what's our next? Well, actually, you know what? What can we do? What exponent is on that x? 1. All right. Now, look at this. These are on the same level. What do you do with
them?
What do you do when they're on the same level?
You add
So you have 6y to the
5, 6, 7,
7th. All right, let's look at the bottom. The -3 just kind of stays where it is. X to the 1st, x to the 4th, same level. X to the 5th. Now, if I had subtraction, I would do it, but how come I can't do 7 minus 5?
Because those bases are.
The bases aren't the same. So there's nothing I can do with that.
But you can do 6 minus 2.
So now we're at our last step. What's the very last step? Reduce. What number goes into 6 and 3? 3. How many times does 3 go into 6? 2. How many times does 3 go into 3? 1. Remember that negative is still there. So just keep it there. So what's in the top?
2 and 7 and y to the 7th.
2y to the 7th over
-1 to the extra.
negative 1x to the 5th. Do you have to put the 1 in front of the x?
No, but
No, but if you want to, you can. Okay? So that's a harder one. That's about as hard as we get because now you got to move on and simplify. Let's try, we have 2 more. This is very, very similar to the last one. So why don't you guys take a minute and see if you can do that one.
where is it?
Is this question going to be on the test?
Yep, you'll have something like this.
Okay,
Okay, so I think technically, guys, if I go back and look at the rules, I think I did go a little out of order. If we go back and look at them, I did this rule before that one. That's how I would do it. You don't have to rewrite it. I would just go like this. Change, let's see. Make the subtract step rule 5 and make that step rule 4. You don't have to do that, but I think if you do it in that order, it's actually easier. Now that I just thought about it after. So do 1, 2, and 3 in the same order, but then do a switch on those last 2. I think that's easier. Do the adding on the same level first, then do the subtracting. Okay, I think that's easier. Okay. All right, so take a couple minutes, try that, and then we'll take a look at it.
I asked a friend of
Who can tell me first thing I need to do here? And the first thing might not even be math. It might just be just circling some stuff. Will? Okay. Okay, the bars. You could put bars in, but there's something we should circle first.
The negative number.
Xander? Okay, what do we circle?
Wait, you're gonna make lines between the 4, 10.
Yeah, we already addressed that with Will.
Oh, and then you gotta circle the numbers. You gotta bring down
Not just the number, but what with the number?
letters.
The letter.
Yeah, the base.
Who can tell me a base and an exponent that needs to move? Yep. Nana? That whole thing should be circled. You should have an arrow saying it goes to the bottom. What else? Yep. A to the negative third. You should circle it.
And then you move it upward.
What about negative 4? I thought we had to move negatives.
No,
Because
only the
not
base ones. The ones with
Because if
bases.
it's a negative base, you don't have to.
That's just a negative.
That's just a regular negative.
That's just a negative number.
Yeah.
I was moving up right into a pile. They cancel out.
Guys,
So you don't have to do
Don't
that.
worry about his stuff.
What?
Worry about your stuff.
I'm sorry.
Worry about your stuff. You got enough to worry about. All right. So a to the negative third, it's going to go to the top. So what is left in the top? Xander?
-4, 8,
All right.
30.
So Xander just said negative 4.
Uh-huh.
A to the third.
Yeah.
And another
A to the third.
A to the third.
Oh, so you like kind of combine it?
We're going to combine it in the next step. Yep. Now, the bottom, you still have a 10.
10 and then
You still have the b squared.
B squared.
But what else is going to be in the bottom?
B negative 2.
B
Negative 2.
positive, right?
Oh yeah, negative 2. It takes away the negative.
When you move it, Joe,
What?
you're talking again.
Okay, sorry. They're talking to you.
You're getting written up. Please be
Okay.
quiet. Okay? Because when you're talking, I know other people get distracted because a couple people have said to me, not just you, but other people talking, I couldn't concentrate today. And that's a problem because it's my job to make sure everyone can concentrate. and you're kind of preventing that. So do whatever you need to do to be quiet in that seat. If you don't want to pay attention and take notes, I'm fine with that. That's on you. All right? So whatever you get, test, that's what you get. But don't distract other people. Thank you. All right. So now we don't have any more negative exponents. What's the next thing we should do? I know we can reduce the 4 and the 10, but there's something we should do first. Combine. Savannah already said it. Same level. What do you do when they're on the same level?
You add the little numbers.
Add them. So at the bottom, I did the top. What do you get at the bottom?
4b to the 4th power.
It's K to B.
10.
B to the.
Well, you already had
To
the
the
title
4th.
there.
Yeah, but you said 4B.
You said 4b to the 4th.
I did.
Just b, you add an extra 4.
I said that.
You got a little 4
I meant
crazy.
b to the little 4.
10b to the 4th. Now, do we have the same letter in more than one spot?
No, so you're all
No.
good.
Letters are good.
You just
Now,
one of the big numbers.
Will mentioned bars. We can put bars in there.
What?
Okay? Separate the numbers.
Now
What-
would be 2 to the 5.
So negative 2. So 2 goes into 4 twice. 2 goes into 10. 5.
And then you just bring over the stuff that we already did.
Bring over the stuff we already did.
Wait.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah,
that's the
I got it
answer.
right.
Oh.
Okay? Is this negative number okay?
Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
negative numbers are fine. Negative exponents are not.
This is a lot of teeth.
Yep, it's a lot of different stuff. That's why I would definitely make a reference sheet.
I'm almost done my reference sheet.
All right, last problem.
Okay. Let's do it.
Oh, that's easier.
What rule is this?
This is the power to a power.
Exactly, power to a power.
I mean, negative.
Wait, but it's a negative.
Noah.
Oh, it's gonna
Noah.
be fresh.
This is a negative.
Alright.
It's gonna be fresh.
No, you have a short attention span.
It's gonna be fresh.
So, power to a power, what do we do with these numbers?
Well, why is it a negative?
No, you gotta take negative 4 and times it 3.
Well, where do you put it? Because usually
I thought you
we'll
made
bring
it
it
into
to
a
the
fraction.
bottom.
Well, let's just start, remember, we always start with our power to a power rule. So multiply 3 times negative 4,
It's negative 12.
negative 12. Now we have that.
Oh, do we put it over 1 and then bring it down?
Put it over 1,
Okay.
and then bring it down, and you're done. So
Pretty much.
what's in the bottom now?
1
Eight
times
over
8
negative
to the
12.
negative 12.
Careful, it's not negative once you move it.
Oh, it's just
Right?
It's 1 over 8 to the 12th power.
That's the whole point of moving it, because it gets rid of that negative. Okay? So you'll probably have one like that on the test, because that's quicker. It's only one letter. Much faster than the
Just
other
get
one.
rid of 1 then.
You can leave the 1. Remember we talked about that? If you want to leave it, that's fine too. All right, so a couple quick reminders. All right? Homework tonight is going to be a worksheet, but what I did on the worksheet is it's all of what we did in section 6.1. Okay? So it's a good review of everything for the test except
The hard.
the graphing with the lines. Okay?
Can I make my own reference sheet as the problems on here?
Sure.
Alright.
The reference sheet, somebody asked me yesterday, they lost it. I put it on Google Classroom. That has the 3 blank grids on it.
It was well true.
No.
Was it? Yeah, it was. Yeah, you came in well.
Well, true.
If you lost it, you can print it off Google Classroom.
Uh-huh.
Tomorrow is our second test for the term.
Gotta do good.
Okay, we are running out of tests to get your grade up. We have 2
Can
left.
we read, if I don't do good, can I retake it?
I asked for extra
No, we
credit.
can't retake it.
Can I use something for extra credit?
Things you can do to bring your grade up, make sure you're passing in your homework on time. If you get 100 for your homework, that helps your average a lot. And you can also come see me for extra help. That's what you can do.
Extra credit, why don't you do it?
We do, Mr. Roy and I always do extra credit. Sometimes we do bonus points. We
haven't done that in so long.
We didn't do a game this week because we didn't have time.
I don't like.
Maybe next week we'll have time for a game, it depends.
Yeah, Yay, I like when we play games.
Fourth quarter progress reports, they close next week.
Oh, but really they close Friday.
But really, you guys are in shop, so this is your last test.
Yay.
Remember, double academic week. So the next academic class after tomorrow is May 21st.
Wait,
Oh my
wait,
goodness.
this is the last